These are the most interesting vintage photos and unusual objects from the past. Let's get 10,000 subscribers. The small metal corners at the junctions of the steps are anti-dust corners, popular in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. They covered hard-to-reach places where dirt could clog, making it easier to clean the stairs. In the 1970s, car hammocks for babies could be found on sale, which were attached to the seats with straps. They were designed so that the child could sleep or rest during the trip. In 1939, photographer and inventor Joseph Steinmetz was captured performing an unusual trick that demonstrated his coordination. He holds the knife with his mouth, balancing several chicken eggs arranged in a vertical chain on it. In 1938, one of the first mobile dinosaurs was unveiled at a carnival in Birmingham, UK. The design with steam coming out of the mouth attracted the attention of the public and imitated a living being. British Assyriologist Dr. Irving Finkel demonstrates a clay tablet about 3,770 years old. It contains a Sumerian myth in which the god Enki warns King Atram of the coming flood and gives instructions for the construction of the ark. This text is considered one of the oldest known legends about the flood. The Kirby Classic The 30 vacuum cleaner, released in the late 1970s, features a sturdy metal body and maintainability that allows it to last for decades. This instance has served its owners for about 45 years, while maintaining its functionality. American military personnel are laying the Marsden matting metal coating for the construction of the runway. In World War II, such mats quickly created airfields in difficult terrain, and made it possible to receive aircraft even on soft ground. During World War II, German aircraft used sections of motorways, such as the Munich-Salzburg Highway, as runways. This was due to the shortage of airfields and the vulnerability of aircraft during takeoff and landing. Using the highway increased their chances of survival. In Japan, archaeologists have discovered a large ceramic vessel filled with thousands of copper coins with a square hole in the center. The discovery was made on the territory of a former samurai residence north of Tokyo. According to experts, the treasure was hidden in the 15th century, probably during internecine wars. During the Vietnam War, an American soldier is depicted against the background of a burning building in a village. He is wearing full combat gear, including a machine gun with a belt of cartridges, and a cigarette is clutched in his mouth. A rare photograph captures the moment of the crash of the German Ju-87 Stuka dive bomber during World War II. The plane collided with a structure, presumably a radar tower, losing control. American soldiers at the crashed CH-46 Sea Knight transport helicopter in Vietnam are preparing positions and checking weapons. The car was probably damaged when landing in a combat zone. The unit continues to complete the task using the remaining gear and equipment. The unusual helmet, equipped with several disposable cameras, made it possible to take panoramic images long before the advent of digital technology. The shutters were controlled via a wired panel in the user's hands. Portable hard drive, with a capacity of 20 MB, 1985. The device was carried in a special shoulder bag, which was considered convenient for that time. This amount of memory was sufficient to store hundreds of text files and a small database. At the beginning of the 20th century, X-ray machines were used not only in medicine, but also in cosmetology, to remove hair and rejuvenate the skin. The procedures were carried out without understanding the danger and led to serious consequences, including burns and the development of skin cancer. Peugeot manual coffee grinder, made more than 117 years ago. The body is made of wood, and the mechanism is made of metal with a curved handle for grinding grains. Zenith ultrasonic remote control from the late 1960s. The Space Command model used metal plates that emit a sound when buttons are pressed, which is picked up by a sensor built into the TV. U.S. Marines take cover from artillery fire on Iwo Jima, March 1945. In the background is a powerful explosion of a Japanese shell, which raised a cloud of smoke and earth. In 1940, during the Blitz, a German bomb left a huge crater in central London, into which a double-decker bus fell. The destruction affected the roadway and adjacent buildings. Pilots of the 99th Fighter Squadron, the first African-American unit in the history of the United States Air Force. The unit was formed during World War II and was part of the famous Tuskegee Airmen. The wreckage of a downed plane lies on the shore of Iwo Jima, March 1945. In the background, Allied ships are visible, providing landing and support for troops during the battle. American military personnel in the Philippines celebrate the news of Japan's unconditional surrender in August 1945. Gillette travel shaving kit with safety razor, probably from the early 20th century. The case is made of brass, and the elements are neatly placed in a velvet case. The earwigger, or earwigger, is an ancient hygiene item used to clean the ears of sulfur. They were made of wood, bone, or metal, often giving an intricate shape. In Russia, such products could be worn as jewelry on a belt or woven into a braid. The welder at the shipyard adjusts her safety glasses before continuing work. During the Second World War, women massively mastered professions that were previously considered male, replacing men who went to the front. A British Handley Page O-400 bomber on a mission on the Western Front in 1918. The vehicle could carry up to 907 kilo of bombs and was armed with 4 Lewis machine guns. German soldiers on the Western Front are preparing an observation balloon for lifting, filling it with gas from several cylinders connected to a collector. Such balloons were used for reconnaissance and correction of artillery fire. Lieutenant Kirk Booth of the U.S. Signal Corps climbs on a Perkins Key at Camp Devens, Massachusetts. The German and French armies actively used such snakes on the front line for reconnaissance. The Lucky Strike camera was developed for the U.S. Signal Corps in 1949-1950, but did not go into production. Only 2 copies were made. The control was carried out using cigarettes protruding from the pack, and the dimensions of the device corresponded to a real pack of Lucky Strike, a Farman-designed aircraft with unguided missiles mounted on racks. Such experiments were carried out during the First World War to attack air and ground targets. The downed German observation balloon fell to the ground, losing its gas and shape. Such balloons were used for reconnaissance and correction of artillery fire. An observer in the gondola of a German balloon during the First World War transmits light signals using a signal pistol. The light signals provided communication with ground units over long distances. German soldiers inspect the overturned aircraft of their army. The accident probably occurred during landing or takeoff when the car lost control. An Austrian armored train in Galicia, circa 1915. Such trains protected personnel and weapons during transportation through dangerous areas. Their use made it possible to fire at the enemy and ensure the protection of railway lines. Interior of an armored train carriage, Chaplino, Dnipropetrovsk region, spring 1918. Large caliber machine guns are mounted along the walls, and ammunition crates are placed around. A German communications detachment on the Western Front, September 1917, installs a field radio station. Power is provided by a tandem bicycle generator, which the soldiers turned manually. A German soldier wipes shells for a 38 cm long Max railway cannon, circa 1918. The gun, originally designed for battleships, was mounted on armored railway platforms. It fired projectiles weighing 750 kg at a range of up to 34.2 km. Bosnian Serb nationalist detained in Sarajevo on June 28, 1914, after Archduke Franz Ferdinand's assassination. The detainee's identity is disputed. Some say Gavrilo Princip, others a passerby, Ferdinand Baer. The event triggered World War I, an army lighter from the Second World War, manufactured by Bowers MFG Co. The design is made of metal, which ensures strength and durability in the field. Belgian soldiers with bicycles in Boulogne, France, 1914. Despite its neutrality, Belgium refused to allow German troops to reach the French border. This refusal became the reason for the German invasion. German soldiers celebrate Christmas on the front line in December 1914. Among the improvised decorations and treats, they try to maintain a festive atmosphere. The British false tree served as a camouflaged observation post on the front line. An observer was stationed inside it, conducting reconnaissance of enemy positions. In 1917, Turkish troops used a heliograph in the area of Kuja, near the Azov Sea. The device transmitted messages using sunlight reflected by a mirror, usually in Morse code. The experimental Red Cross machine, created around 1915, was designed to evacuate the wounded from trenches under the protection of armor. The design had narrow wheels and low ground clearance, which severely limited its cross-country ability. A gas mask from the time of the First World War, made of fabric soaked in a chemical solution. The simple design with round glasses for the eyes and a molded nose insert protected it from chemical warfare gases. An airplane view of a group of biplanes flying in formation, 1914-1918. The slender arrangement facilitated mutual cover and orientation in flight. This method of flight was common among military pilots of the First World War. An unused German trench car, January 8, 1918. It was intended for the mechanized laying of trenches, but most of the trenches were dug manually during the First World War. Hawaiian handguns of the late 18th century are made of wood with embedded shark teeth for lacerating wounds. Such items were used in close combat and could be both an individual weapon and an element of military equipment. Indian soldiers of the British Army conduct exercises on putting on gas masks on the Thessaloniki front during the First World War. This front was created by the Allies to support Serbia and deter the armies of the Central Powers in the Balkans. A horse intended for the Austro-Hungarian army is being unloaded in Çanakkale, Turkey. Horses were actively used to transport equipment and artillery in rough terrain. A German soldier uses a field phone handset, providing communication with the command, while two of his comrades carry a coil of wire. The wires were laid directly on the ground or along the trenches, which made the line vulnerable to shelling. On the Western Front, bunker busters are being unloaded, shells weighing about 635 kilograms. During the explosion, they created craters with a depth of over 4.5 meters and a diameter of about 14 meters. The false horse was used as a disguise for snipers in no man's land. Inside the structure, a shooter was placed, conducting surveillance or firing at the enemy. Black lamps, known as blackout bulbs, were used in the late 1930s and during World War II. They provided dim light, invisible from the air, which helped hide the cities from enemy bombers. In 1913, fans climbed trees to watch a football match between the national teams of Belgium and the Netherlands. This location gave a good view of the field in the absence of bleachers or empty seats. In 1916, Highlanders from the British Army delivered sandbags to the front line to strengthen their positions. Such bags were used for the construction of trenches, parapets, and protection from shrapnel. Around 1918, women in the welding workshop of the Lincoln Motor Company in Detroit performed work related to military production. Due to the participation of men in the fighting, many women took jobs in industrial enterprises. A British officer under fire lifts soldiers out of a trench to attack. The action takes place on the Western Front of the First World War, when the infantry made sorties under heavy enemy artillery fire. Abandoned tanks were left on the battlefield at Clapham Junction near Ypres, Belgium, around 1918. The vehicles were disabled during the fighting and remained among the destroyed landscape. American soldiers from the 117th Maryland Trench Mortar Battery fired during a raid on March 4, 1918 in Badenviller, France. The crew worked without interruption, supporting the advancing units. About 2,000 years ago, the Roman Emperor Nero watched gladiatorial fights through polished emeralds. Such mirrors served as primitive sunscreens, reducing the brightness of the scorching southern sun. In 1917, Turkish machine gunners took up positions in Tel es-Sharia on the Gaza line during the Sinai-Palestine campaign. Their task was to hold the strategically important route leading to the Suez Canal. The German aviation suit from the First World War included an electrically heated mask, an insulated vest, and fur boots. Such equipment protected the pilot from hypothermia in an open cockpit at high altitudes. The German military hospital for dogs, circa 1918, was intended for the treatment of wounded animals returning from the front. The service dogs performed the tasks of delivering messages, searching for the wounded, and transporting light goods. After the destruction of the steel bridge over the Scheldt, a temporary wooden bridge was erected in Masnier. An English tank was used as a support, which fell into the river during the dismantling of the old structure. German officers posed next to an armored car in Ukraine, spring 1918. Armored vehicles were used for reconnaissance, protection, and infantry support. Their mobility made it possible to quickly respond to threats in an unstable environment. Around 1918, machine gun crews on motorcycles were preparing to be sent to France. The driver was driving a motorcycle, and the shooter in an armored sidecar was firing. German troops are preparing to fire gas projectors for spraying toxic substances. This method of delivery was supposed to circumvent the ban on the use of gas shells stipulated by international treaties. Chemical weapons were carried by the wind to enemy positions, causing massive casualties. In November 1917, after the Italian army retreated to the Tagliamento River, Austro-German troops captured an Obite Da 30517 heavy howitzer in a village near Udine. This gun was one of fewer than 50 examples produced during the war. Around 1914, the French army used mobile X-ray laboratories to examine the wounded. Such installations made it possible to quickly diagnose fractures and identify fragments right near the front line. The botalo, or shepherd's bell, was used to indicate the location of livestock by sound. It was made of various materials, had a loop for fastening, and a tongue that made a ringing sound when moving. The photograph captured a nuclear explosion a millisecond after detonation in 1952. A bright plasma sphere is visible, surrounded by a shock wave that is just beginning to form. In 1934, in Chicago, girls wash a giant replica of a Studebaker car, created as an advertising exhibit. The car was amazing in size and was considered the largest car in the world. In the 1940s, the popular toddler races were held in the USA, in which crawling babies participated. The competitions attracted a lot of spectators and were entertaining. In the 19th century, women were often discouraged from cycling by scaring them with the so-called bicycle face, a supposedly protruding chin and bulging eyes. This myth was used as an excuse to limit their participation in cycling. In 1920, the concept of healthy habits was a bit different. That's where athletes calmly share cigarettes during the Tour de France cycling race. England, 1900. Children are doing physical exercises in the schoolyard. In 1933, on the morning after Prohibition was lifted in the United States, men and women openly celebrated the return of alcohol. In the picture, a man is lying on the street, hugging a bottle as a symbol of the long-awaited freedom to drink. Turkey, 1930. A fisherman carries a huge fish on his shoulder, significantly exceeding his length. Such a catch was rare and became a reason for pride. Berlin, 1931. Demonstration of one of the first steel chainsaw models designed for one-man operation. Inventor Andreas Steele started with a bulky two-handed electric version in 1926, and by 1930, he had perfected the design. GDR, 1958. Baby elephant Cusco, a gift from Vietnam, frolics with children at the zoo. Due to the lack of an open enclosure, she was allowed to walk freely around the territory. Sweden, 1957. The director of gymnastics demonstrates exercise equipment at a metallurgical plant. The complex was designed to restore and strengthen muscles after working at blast furnaces. The Infantry Division of the U.S. Army, 1935, conducts combat training in bathing suits. This form was used for demonstration performances and photo shoots, and not in real exercises. Barcelona, 1965. Two nuns look at a mannequin in a bikini during a street exhibition or showcase. New York, 1946. Nurses show newborn triplets to their father, who, unable to stand the emotions, loses consciousness. Albert Einstein takes the oath of office upon obtaining U.S. citizenship, 1940. Next to him, are his daughter and secretary, who are also participating in the naturalization ceremony. American sculptor Gutzon Borglum is working on a clay model of Mount Rushmore. The model shows future portraits of 4 U.S. presidents, which will later be carved into granite. Johan Kristin Pettersson, an Icelandic giant about 2.34 meters tall, poses with a group of models. He was known for his performances at fairs and circuses, where he amazed the audience with his height and strength. Woolwich, London, 1917. There are thousands of artillery shells in the warehouse, ready to be sent to the front. Due to the shortage of ammunition in the early years of the war, Great Britain was forced to dramatically increase production, attracting a large number of women to work in the military industry. Berlin, circa 1940. Adolf Hitler practices rhetorical gestures in front of his personal photographer, Heinrich Hoffmann, listening to recordings of his own speeches. Despite the order to destroy these images, Hoffmann kept the negatives. Warsaw, spring 1943. Jewish families leave the Warsaw Ghetto with their hands in the air after the uprising was suppressed for several months. In the foreground is a boy in a big hat, whose identity remains unknown despite decades of research. Berlin, 1961. Residents of West Berlin are standing on an embankment, trying to see the eastern part of the city through the newly erected Berlin Wall. The wall became a symbol of the division, not only of the city, but also of the world into 2 opposing blocks. Bucharest, December 1989. Thousands of demonstrators filled the streets in front of the headquarters of the Romanian Communist Party, demanding the overthrow of Nicolae Ceausescu. In April 1920, American Herbert McBride set a world speed record among amateur motorcyclists, reaching 167 km/h. In a few days, the racers broke about 20 world speed records. On January 6, 1920, Kentucky Governor Edwin P. Morrow signed into law the ratification of the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. This document granted women the right to vote, becoming an important step in the history of American suffrage. In July 1920, an unusual design called the Birdman was presented at the air show. The device imitated the shape of a bird and was controlled by a pilot who sought to reproduce its flight. In June 1920, stuntman Ormer Locklear performed a risky stunt while standing on the wing of a Curtiss Jenny biplane at a speed of about 145 km/h. Such dangerous performances became part of the popular show Walking on the Wing at that time. A crowd of men in hats filled the streets of New York's financial district after the explosion on Wall Street on September 16, 1920. The attack claimed the lives of more than 30 people and injured hundreds. It became one of the most high-profile terrorist attacks in the history of the city. On August 17, 1920, the newspaper reported on a young girl who decided to change her profession from a bricklayer to a job making iron beams. The picture captured her at a new activity, previously considered exclusively male. London, circa 1920. A vending machine provides an opportunity for day shift workers to buy goods after stores close. Such devices were installed on the streets to sell cigarettes, sweets, and other small items. Lakehurst, USA, May 6, 1937. The German airship Hindenburg caught fire while attempting to land, killing 36 people. The disaster ended the era of passenger airships. France, circa 1914. French cavalrymen are moving down the street. The Dupuy de Lôme reconnaissance airship is flying in the sky above them. The aircraft was used to monitor and adjust artillery fire in the early years of the First World War. Belgium, 1915. A French pilot makes an emergency landing on friendly territory after an unsuccessful attack on a German Zeppelin hangar near Brussels. His biplane landed under a tree, which the soldiers climbed to examine the car. France, World War I. Allied soldiers, probably from Australia, tow a downed German twin-engine bomber down the street. Captured equipment was used to study the enemy's design and tactics. 1914, harnessed dogs transport a British Army machine gun and ammunition facilitating the movement of heavy weapons weighing up to 150 pounds. This method of transportation was used in difficult areas and rough terrain. Mountains of spent shell casings left over from the intense shelling of German positions are visible near the front line. Such an accumulation indicates a prolonged and dense fire. Soldiers in the trenches find time to write letters home, despite the difficult conditions of frontline life. Their life alternated between long periods of inactivity and sudden moments of mortal danger. A pigeon with a miniature camera attached was used in Julius Neubronner's experiments at the beginning of the 20th century. The bird flew along a set route, and the built-in timer was triggered, taking aerial photographs. Kemmel, West Flanders, May 1918. German ambulances destroyed by enemy artillery fire. The damage shows the intensity of the fire in this sector of the front. September 1917. A messenger dog carries a coil of wire on a harness for laying a field communication line. This method made it possible to quickly and relatively safely pull the cable through the areas under fire. Valenciennes, France, 1915. An Indian elephant from the Hamburg Zoo is used by German troops to transport logs. Due to the shortage of pack animals in Germany, circus and zoo animals were requisitioned. A British soldier poses next to a captured 30-centimeter heavy cannon from the First World War. Such trophies demonstrated the success of the Allies and were used for propaganda purposes. The gun probably belonged to the German siege artillery. A French soldier with severe facial wounds from the First World War tries on a mask made in the workshop of Anna Coleman Ladd at the American Red Cross. Such masks made of thin metal were painted to match the color of the skin and helped hide the disfigured areas of the face. A soldier of the British Medical First Aid Service maintains an ambulance, lubricating its parts near the Western Front. Female drivers played an important role in evacuating the wounded and providing medical logistics. In France, a group of female carpenters from the QMAAC work at a sawmill, erecting wooden huts. They are wearing protective jackets and aprons over casual clothes. By 1918, this corps numbered about 57,000 women, who replaced men in a number of military professions during the First World War. France, 1916. British soldiers play football without removing their gas masks. Such training sessions were conducted to get used to the equipment in conditions of a possible gas attack. Italy, 1900. Women wash clothes on the shore of a reservoir using traditional methods. Similar work was done manually using brushes, soap, and washing boards. Naples, 1904. Men and women are engaged in basket weaving on the street. This craft was a common source of income and was handmade from natural materials. Naples, 1904. A man in shabby clothes sits against a wall, begging for alms. The picture captures the street poverty of the early 20th century. Naples, 1908-1919. A boy sells roasted chestnuts on the street. Street trading was a common activity for children from poor families. Italy, 1914-1915. A group of military motorcyclists posing with equipment. Motorcycles were used for reconnaissance, communications, and delivering orders at the front. Circa 1915 to 1920, an Italian soldier sits on a large artillery shell next to captured Austrian ammunition. September 13, 1918, a wounded Italian soldier works out his muscles while pedaling on a simulator. His body is heavily bandaged, which indicates severe wounds received at the front. Perth-le-Gerlou, Eastern France. A French soldier in a trench aims an anti-aircraft machine gun at an airplane. Such weapons were used to protect positions from air attacks. Unveil, France, September 20th, 1918. Wounded American soldiers are housed in a destroyed church. The medical staff of the 110th Ambulance Train of the 4th Corps is helping them right among the wreckage. Clyde or Newcastle, United Kingdom. View from inside the hull of a submarine under construction of the Royal Navy. The metal sections and bulkheads have not yet been sheathed, which allows us to see the design of the future vessel. This historical image captures the moment when the Allied fleet in the Dardanelles destroys a disabled vessel that interferes with navigation. American Marines and sailors pose aboard an unidentified warship in 1918. These images symbolize the close cooperation of the various branches of the United States forces during the war, and capture one of the rarely preserved group photographs of personnel on naval vessels of that time. The sailors of the French cruiser Admiral Aube pose at the anvil fixed on the deck. Such a forging plant was used for the repair and maintenance of shipboard equipment at sea. U.S. Naval Shipyard, Washington, 1917. Workers manufacture large, caliber guns for the Navy. These guns were intended for battleships and coastal artillery, providing long-range support. In 1917, a ship of the Royal Navy of Great Britain launches a torpedo. Torpedo armament was used to attack enemy ships from close and medium range. A German submarine was stranded off the southern coast of England shortly after Germany's surrender. Such submarines surrendered to the Allies under the terms of the armistice. Around 1910-1915, sailors aboard a Japanese battleship practiced fencing. Such trainings were conducted to maintain physical fitness and practice combat skills. The middle part of the hull of an American submarine, viewed from the stern, demonstrates a complex system of pipelines, mechanisms, and devices. The design is designed to control engines and auxiliary systems. Max Desfort's photo captured the moment when Korean refugees crossed the destroyed bridge over the Taedong River, fleeing the offensive. Exhausted people, carrying belongings and children, are moving along a dangerous crossing under the threat of shelling. An elderly woman who survived imprisonment in the Nazi Auschwitz concentration camp holds her great-granddaughter in her arms. Her camp number is visible on her forearm, which has become a mute testimony to the trials she endured. One of the first military photographs in history, taken during the Mexican-American War of 1846-1848, captured horsemen on the streets of the city in 1847. The image is made using the daguerreotype technique, which explains its low contrast and metallic luster. Otto Frank, the only survivor of the Frank family, was captured in 1960 at the secret entrance to the attic in Amsterdam, where his family hid from the Nazis from 1942 to 1944. The secret door was disguised by a bookcase, behind which there was a hiding place. Years after the tragic events, he returned here to honor the memory of his loved ones and preserve their life story. A soldier of the 369th Infantry Regiment of the United States, known as the Hellfighters of Harlem, captured in France in 1918, holding a puppy he rescued. Amanda America Dixon, 1849-1893, was the daughter of a 13-year-old slave and her 40-year-old master, planter David Dixon. After her father's death, she inherited his multi-million-dollar fortune, becoming one of the richest African-American women of her time. German soldiers walk along a street in Lauban, now Lublin, Poland, in March 1945, armed with Panzerfaust anti-tank grenade launchers. This city became the site of one of the last successful counterattacks of the Wehrmacht on the Eastern Front. A Japanese woman smiles as she comes out of hiding among the ruins of Nagasaki after the atomic bombing on August 9, 1945. In the background, the surviving bell tower of the Catholic Church can be seen in the haze. Despite the destruction and radiation, some residents were able to survive by climbing out of the rubble. At a photo exhibition in 2005, a woman suddenly recognizes her dead son in a picture taken on the anniversary of the tragic events in Abkhazia. The photograph captures the aftermath of ethnic cleansing, which claimed thousands of lives in the early 1990s. A sailor returns home after 14 months of service at sea in the 1940s. At the moment of the long-awaited meeting, he hugs his wife and holds his child in his arms for the first time, whom he has never seen before. Soviet officers inspect the area near Hitler's bunker shortly after the capture of Berlin on May 1, 1945. The building and surrounding buildings were heavily damaged by shelling and bombing. In December 1961, the Beatles performed at the Aldershot Club in front of only 18 people due to unsuccessful concert advertising. At that time, they were still little known outside of Liverpool. A year and a half later, the The band became a global phenomenon, gathering tens of thousands of fans at every performance. British soldiers rest on a slope near the destroyed bridge over the Canal Saint-Quentin in northern France in 1918. The battle was part of the final offensive of the Entente in the First World War. Exhausted but victorious, they await further orders after heavy fighting. Algeria, 1955. In the foreground is an Algerian prisoner captured by French troops during the War of Independence. His intense, direct gaze reflects internal resistance and determination, despite the military superiority of the colonialists. In 1915, a group of Belgian refugee children study at an improvised open-air school in the Netherlands. Classes are held among trees, using a portable blackboard and books, which made it possible to continue education in the conditions of war. Michael Jackson playing on the Sega Mega Drive, late 1980s. The console, known as the Genesis in the United States, was one of the most popular gaming systems at the time, and Jackson was known for his love of video games. Later, he even participated in the creation of the Moonwalker game for this platform. In 1931, the world was confronted with lethargic encephalitis, or sleeping sickness. The disease caused a condition in which people remained conscious, but were completely immobilized and could not speak. The disease disappeared as suddenly as it appeared, without any found causes. Tips from Blanche Abbott's 1913 book contains recommendations for wives and husbands on how to behave in marriage. Wives are advised to avoid criticizing their husband, to be grateful, and not to impose their tastes. And husbands are advised not to talk down to their wife and value her interests. The Mantle and Axe of Giovanni Bugatti, the Pope's official executioner from 1796 to 1864. Over 68 years of service, he personally executed 514 death sentences, making him one of the longest-serving executioners in Europe. The participants of the Romanian Revolution of 1989, who took refuge in the building, are armed and ready for battle. This coup was the bloodiest among the Eastern Bloc countries, culminating in the overthrow and execution of Nicolae Ceausescu. The U.S. military is interrogating 2 Soviet soldiers who were detained drunk in the American occupation zone of Germany in 1949. Such incidents reflected the tensions between the former Allies in the early years of the Cold War. In the spring of 1945, shortly after the liberation of the camp, the former prisoner identified one of the most brutal guards among the captured guards. Such moments became key to subsequent investigations of war crimes. Eyewitness testimony played a crucial role in the Nazi trials. On August 6, 1945, in Hiroshima, an instantaneous atomic explosion incinerated a man sitting on the steps of the Sumitomo Bank. All that remained of him was a silhouette of light on the stone, capturing the moment of the disaster. This print has become one of the most famous symbols of the tragedy. Marilyn Monroe signs autographs for children after arriving in Arizona on June 6, 1956. At that time, the actress was already one of the most recognizable Hollywood stars, and her appearance caused a stir. Crowds of people filled Times Square in New York on May 7, 1945, welcoming the news of the surrender of Nazi Germany. The day that went down in history as VE Day marked the end of the war in Europe. The atmosphere in the square was filled with joy, relief, and a sense of the beginning of a new peaceful era. An educational car repair shop in an American high school, the 1950s. Students learn how to repair and assemble cars by working with real cars and their components. An employee of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York moves a gold bar among thousands of others. 1959, the bank's vault contains some of the largest gold reserves in the world, owned by various states. Thank you for watching to the end. If you liked it, please like, subscribe, and click on the bell. There are even more unique stories ahead.